Okay, as I've shared with you, I use AI in the script writing process. I do a freestyle writing based on the concepts I want to cover. I always have at least 3 points to every video. And then I do a little bit of research. I pull it together, and then I have AI, and I use a variety of tools. So there's different tones as you listen to these and see them. But I'll have AI put it together so it is a more coherent and precise conversation as we move through the concepts, and then I go back and rework it a little bit more. This one I actually needed to use 3 different AI tools, completely trashing each one and then reworking it completely. I did put the final information in one last time to AI, and this time I decided to keep it. This is really important because this is a warning about AI, and this really shows why we've got to be on guard. So normally I skip the header or the deliverance from the AI, but I'm going to read it to you. This model that I ultimately went to today was ChatGPT. The other ones would not even help me. They omitted so much of the data and created entire different quotes and news articles from books. In fact, one of the books is specifically referencing OpenAI, and it took me a totally different direction. If I hadn't read the book, I would not have understood that AI was quite honestly lying to me. So it's very cold in the office today. I have a hoodie on that does not say Adidas, for any of you that get that joke, but my toes are frozen. So let's go ahead and move through this because I am a human in a human world. So this is the opener that I got from ChatGPT. It says, absolutely. Here's a 40-minute YouTube script. So you're seeing behind the scenes. It says that weaves together quotes and specific references from, and it names the different books that I was interested in. And another example from Samsung, which when I review it, it looked like it was omitted altogether. We'll see if it put it into part 2. And the reason why I say part 2 is one of the things that we say that are a benefit with AI is that it never gets tired. Well, during the summer, we saw a lot of anomalies with ChatGPT where I would ask it to write a chapter of a book as I was playing with the models and working with my prompts. And it would write a phenomenal book chapter and then ask me if I wanted the table of contents. And then based on that, would you like me to write book chapter number 2? And it would go and go until one day I asked it to write a chapter of a book, and it gave me a title and told me to go do it. What? So the terms are changing, and it's really because of those pulling the strings behind the curtain. So here, a lot was omitted, a lot was absolutely changed. References are always in the articles I require, and that those references were completely made up. We're not in the summer of 2025 anymore. We're now in February. We just closed out January. We're in February of 2026. This should not be happening. So as it proceeds to tell me, it incorporated my requested style. I didn't tell it a style. I was using a new tool without a login, and structure, including a technical breakdown, a reinvention segment, and mentions of an 80s TV show. I did ask for something there, but that was kind of odd the way it was phrased. So let's see what it came up with. Welcome back to Tech Reality with Barbara. AI autonomy and the security nightmare as I talk about safety and policy and governance. This is something that is key for me. My personality and background is that of understanding the law, applying guardrails, and making sure that what we're putting out in the public is safe. Because quite honestly, if you have a 2-ton weapon that you put on the freeway going 65 miles an hour, you'd better have done your testing first. In the fintech world, you mess up taxes. That's not good at all. But when you're driving on the curbs, we just can't have that. So I step more into the world of policy, security, and governance than most individuals. And yes, This is a security nightmare that I'm talking about today. So for the opening, I want to welcome you back to the channel. This channel means a lot to me. As you see, we've built this over many, many years. This particular channel started, I believe, around 2020. We've been building this much, much longer. And I had one of the channels on YouTube, if you can believe it. We've never launched like a rocket. We haven't paid for advertising or movement, but we've had a lot of fun over the years. And talking about AI, which is really my passion, is something that I can sit here and share with individuals who want to listen, learn a little along the way, and really have a cautious note. So again, this is at Tech Reality Barbara on YouTube. Today's video is very deep. It's technical, but on a surface, so that this is really meant for everybody. It's a technical exploration of a security nightmare of AI agents. Not so sci-fi fears, and actually looking at the reality. Grounded problems we're already living with. You know, at one point, and I use the same example over and over again, I would tell my father that every time I went to Safeway, I was being overcharged. He says, that's ridiculous. I'm just complaining. So I drove him to Safeway. And I said, pick anything you want. I think it was 5 items he picked that day. At this point, I can't remember the numbers. I think it was 5. Maybe it was 3. But anyways, he got overcharged. And he went out to the car and he made a point to tell me that, see, I made it up. He'd never been overcharged, and that's ridiculous. And I said, did you even look at the prices on the items or your receipt? No. So just because he wasn't aware and wasn't paying attention didn't mean he wasn't overcharged. And sure enough, I showed him. This is really a time where we need to be aware. We can't be naive. We have to apply discernment, and we've got to pay attention. Grounded problems that we're already living with is what we're focusing here. Whether we know it or not, we've been opted in. We're going to reference 2 major books here. One, The AI Con, which is written by Emily M. Bender and Alex Hanna. And then also we're going to reference Empire of AI. This is by Karen Howe. And we're going to pull quotes and specific references that will really illuminate what's happening underneath the hype. We'll do this by also including Samsung's autonomous soldiers on the Korean border. Now, when I asked other GPT channels to look into this, they told me it was a lie. It didn't happen. Well, it has, and it does. We're going to look at how autonomous military systems are already deployed and what that means on a societal level. And later, we'll do a reinvented technical breakdown of vulnerabilities in AI architecture. The kind most videos just don't talk about. If you want a high-level overview instead, there's other versions out there, but this one is just technical enough to be available to everybody. Okay, why do we need to discuss AI agents? Right now, everyone is talking about AI agents, autonomous programs that can fetch data, make decisions, write emails, pull in web pages, and in some cases, even operate robots and weapon systems. But before we really jump into agents themselves, we need context. What does AI hype actually mean? And why is it a con? That's a bold statement. That's where the AI con comes in. The AI con, what it says about AI hype. In the AI Con book, How to Fight Big Tech's Hype and Create the Future We Want, authors Emily and Alex, they look at how the industry sells AI as a revolutionary sentient technology, when in reality, much of what is sold as AI is marketing amplified by tech corporations. And in fact, these same tech corporations are using the concept of AI to right-size employees, give them the boot. One key insight from the book: artificial intelligence, if we're being frank, is a con, a bill of goods you are being sold to line someone's pockets. Okay? So maybe this isn't rhetoric. The book states it's not. It comes from a thorough analysis of how the term AI has been used to justify surveillance, capitalism, data exploitation, and labor devaluation. Labor. Let's set aside the human capital management, which in my mind, in my business, has always been the key resource of any business and all business, while obscuring the actual mechanics behind the technology. Remember the 100 Indians? There's a lot of companies that have the MVP, the minimal viable product, with UI that is customer facing, and it's just a bunch of people running behind the scenes. It's okay as long as the work gets done. It's not okay if that lie is being used to leverage additional investment, fundraising, or manipulation. And another powerful point the book makes: neither large language models nor anything else being sold as AI is conscious, sentient, or able to function as an independent thinking entity. In other words, the tech industry often markets AI systems as if they were thinking machines, even though under the hood, they're statistical pattern machines trained on massive data sets and powered by human-generated signals, not conscious intelligence. So this is a critical point that the book wants to get across. However, in my experience, if you have to brick a car because it's making up its own rules, perhaps it already crossed over. And mind you, that was 6 years ago. So this is critical to understand before we talk about the risks. Let's look at the other book that I want to discuss today. It's called Empire of AI: The Real Power and Its Consequences. Let's shift to this book, Dreams and Nightmares in Sam Altman's OpenAI. And this one was again written by Karen Hao, H-A-O. This book takes a journalistic and yet really dive into one of the world's most influential AI organizations. Now, I'm waiting for info to come out on Snowflake, but that's gaining huge dollars, but staying under the radar in many means. But for now, we've got OpenAI and how the ambition for AI power resembles historical empires. The author examines the idea that AI firms are not just technology companies. They are economic and geopolitical powers, shaping global infrastructures, markets, and even regulatory norms. The book documents OpenAI's origins and culture and ties it back to border themes of dominance and resonance. Resource control, much like colonial empires of the 19th century. So you're going to hear people talk about AI taking over. According to Empire of AI, it's not something autonomous future entities that'll wipe us out. It's corporate and state power structures using AI as a tool for control, extraction, and influence. For any of you who follow Dick Allgeier, I was going to call him Richard, but Dick Allgeier, he just made a statement that starting March 1st, AI is going to monitor all movement of crypto. It's already starting, but by March 1st is the cutoff. And it's all run by AI. But it's for IRS monitoring. It's really not for your safety at all. Autonomous soldiers on the Korean border. Now, this is a segment that GPTs kept taking out. In fact, Copilot wouldn't allow it at all. It told me it was a made-up story. So let's talk about autonomy in the real world. Not theory, not hype, real machines in defensive roles. One of the earliest and most controversial examples of autonomous military systems dates back to the Korean Demilitarized Zone, the DMZ. South Korea and North Korea are technically still at war, and the DMZ represents one of the world's most militarized zones. Along this line, Samsung, Techwin, now Hanwha, HANWHA Aerospace, and Korea University have developed the SGR-A1 Autonomous Sentry System. It's a fixed robot, meaning it doesn't have legs. And it's a guard designed to assist troops by detecting, tracking, and even firing on intruders along the border. And it makes the decision by itself. These systems were developed as early as 2003, as far as I became publicly known, with prototypes appearing around 2006 and deployment into this decade. Here's what's really remarkable and concerning. The SGR-A1 could autonomously detect human figures via cameras and sensors. We would think if we look at an autonomous vehicle, it would identify such. And when we go into the operations, I can show you how the computers and the LiDAR are sent to assess a human being differentiated from something blowing in the wind. But in this case, it's the opposite purpose of why it's finding them. It was capable of warning intruders. It could warn them. And in some modes, autonomous engagement would appear, meaning it could theoretically fire without human intervention. Now, remember, the other GPTs removed this altogether, the whole segment. And this one is having a softer tone of what it actually did. South Korea designed the system to replace human-oriented guards facing severe weather, fatigue, and other limitations. I don't know, such as maybe values? Because the DMZ is some 250 kilometers long, the appeal of a machine that can stand guard for 24/7 without rest is obvious to defense planners. But this affronts many ethical frameworks. We're not talking about simulation. We're talking about automated life and death decision machines being deployed in a real geopolitical hotspot. I've never seen the numbers related to this. So the impact of autonomous soldiers. What is the actual impact? I don't know. We've used drones, and that has been massive. There's typically somebody behind the drones, so we're told. Are they autonomous? Yes, many of them are. So number one, military strategy. Robotic sentries reduce manpower needs and risk to soldiers and can operate in extreme conditions that would wear humans out. Not an excuse. Ethical and legal grounding. Robots make lethal decisions, even with human override available. They push the boundaries of international humanitarian law and raise serious questions about responsibility, accountability, and control. I think of the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy. Remember when the Coke bottle fell from the airplane and the quest that went on? That individual would understand nothing about a drone flying overhead with a bomb on it. Where's the humanity? You didn't opt in. Number three, technological precedence. What starts in a heavily controlled DMZ may very well influence future deployments of autonomous systems in conflict zones all around the world, including on our soil, from border defense to urban warfare. So all of this lines up with the concerns raised in the AI Con, where AI isn't mystical or even magical. It's embedded automation with real-world impact. Peter Thiel's concepts are terrifying. This isn't something that we want the USA known for. And I don't know that the world can move past that. quick history. So this is where it injects my Disney theme. KITT and that Disney VW bug, Herbie. So before we continue the technical parts, here's a quick cultural reference. You might have remembered Knight Rider's KITT, K-I-T-T, a virtually sentient car from the 1980s that talked, reasoned, and made decisions on its own. Or maybe you remember Disney's autonomous VW bug, Herbie, a car that actually acted on instinct and whim. Both examples illustrate popular imagination about autonomous systems, machines that think and act independently. But as the AI con reminds us, real autonomy is not magic or sentience. It's engineering, code, data, reinforcement loops, and constraints. Who started the programming? This relates back to COVID. When we were not allowed to leave our homes, yet international flights never stopped, who was brought in to the tech headquarters to program the machines? So here's a perfect segue. A technical breakdown, part 1, the reality of AI architecture. A lot of videos about AI, like its brain in a box, they'll say things like AI makes decisions, almost implying free will. Well, that is really misleading. The truth is more nuanced and much more dangerous. AI systems, including agents and robots, operate through mathematical optimization and statistical prediction. So if we look at Waymo versus Teslas, Waymos primarily rely on pre-mapped roads. They run on rails, as an example, using LiDAR. The Teslas are running on cameras. They don't need pre-mapped roads. They form the road as they're going down it. We also know that as of this weekend, Elon announced that they're going to stop the production of 2 of the Tesla versions, the vehicles, and move that manufacturing and human labor over to creating the Optimus for production. Soon you'll have Optimus in your home, or at least walking down the street. As my son likes to call the robot delivery machines, clankers, I think Optimus is going to be more closer to iRobot. And I don't think that's the world I'm looking forward to. Remember, they come knowing everything that you've had in your cell phone, everything you've been speaking to your AI or Google or Siri. All of that comes in there. So AI systems, including agents and robots, operate, again, through mathematical optimization and statistical prediction. At their core, most modern AI models, including those underpinning autonomous agents, are built on 3 foundations: neural networks, embedding spaces, and token prediction algorithms. These are not decision-making entities. They are function approximators, trained to minimize loss functions over large data sets. So, crucially, these systems have no inherent ground truth understanding of what is right, what is wrong, what is safe, or ethical. They have no way other than what they're told. And they don't care. They don't have feelings. If they commit a crime, who's responsible? All the fingers will get pointed, and maybe the plug is unpulled of that one robot or machine. But the accountability isn't there. This makes them more vulnerable when integrated into systems that act physically and physically autonomously. So the security nightmare, why autonomy amplifies risk. Here's where it gets scary. AI agents that can fetch web data, parse it, and use it to make decisions, even limited decisions, are now tools that attackers can exploit. Imagine that 2-ton vehicle going down the freeway. If it's hacked, what happens? What happens to the passenger inside? What happens to those outside? And why? Because these systems blur the boundaries between code and data. Historically, computer security made a distinction. Your instructions were separate from untrusted data. AI systems, especially large language models and agent frameworks, collapse that distinction in a way that's unprecedented, very hard to verify, and very easy to manipulate. Attackers can inject malicious prompts or hidden instructions through seemingly innocuous data sources. This is not just a theoretical risk, it's a security nightmare in the making. Talk about AI agents gathering. How about AI agents running a company? What if one more AI comes into the mix and it's not one of yours? What are the constraints? Can you stop it? They'll find a workaround. The answer is no, you can't stop it. But you've got to be aware. And just like any security or cyber threat, be prepared. It's a moving target. You have to be right 100% of the time. They only have to be right once. This is really, again, a security nightmare in the making at scale. Technical breakdown. So here we're going to move to part 2. Prompt injection and memory architecture. One of the reasons AI agents are dangerous is that they can be coerced into executing instructions, embedded in secondary data pulled from external sources. We call this prompt injection because agents run everything through the same embedding and processing pipeline. There's no robust way to tell what came directly from the user, what came from contextual data, and what was maliciously embedded in the data. This was a key insight from critics of early large language models. They operate more like statistical patterns, reproducers that self-aware agents. Than self-aware agents. And the underlying security model hasn't fundamentally changed. In fact, it worsens when you grant agents autonomy to fetch data without any oversight. And this is where we're at already today. Now I'm going to kind of pause here because this is the note I got with AI. Continue writing the full 40-minute script in the same pattern to adhere to constraints. Let me know if you want to continue. Yes, I want to continue. I want to complete my entire conversation here. It just cut off. Okay, so I'm continuing now. Thanks to this break by AI. It gave me a note. All right, let's keep rolling. Picking up right where we left off, taking this all the way to a full 40-minute script. Same tone, same structure, and technical debt. Anybody want to tell me why it stopped? Okay, so on to the next segment that I have here. So reinventing the technical breakdown, why agents are a category error. Here's the key reframing that I want to introduce, something that's missing for most conversations. AI agents are not a new invention. They are a rebranding of a very old, very dangerous idea, automated execution with untrusted inputs. I'll say that one more time. Automated execution with untrusted inputs. In classic computing, we spent 60 years learning the hard way that if you let systems automatically execute instructions derived from external data, bad things happen. That's buffer overflows. That's remote code execution. That's macro viruses. That's malvertising. AI agents resurrect the entire class of vulnerabilities, but in natural language instead of machine code. And natural language is worse. Why? Because it has no strict grammar. It has no hard delimiters. It has no guaranteed semantics, and it's impossible to formally verify. So when vendors say, this agent can safely browse the web and act on your behalf, what they're actually saying is, We're allowing arbitrary third-party text to influence automated execution pathways. That's not intelligence. That is an attack surface. So why is this not being solved? You'll hear a lot of confident language from AI companies saying things like, we're working on guardrails. We're improving alignment. We'll patch prompt injection. The hard truth, this is not a patchable problem, and most companies don't care. They'll point fingers. Maybe they'll terminate somebody. But if you go into a code developing group, a development operations, security is an afterthought. One, because it creates friction. It creates friction for onboarding. It creates friction in code writing. It's another thing to deal with. Most don't implement it until they get caught. And in this case with AI, it's not a patchable problem. Why? Because it's structurally similar to the halting problem and input validation paradoxes in computer science. You can't reliably determine whether a piece of language is just information or whether it functions as an instruction, because language itself is the interface. Any system that claims it can always distinguish between benign context and malicious instructions is either lying to you, extremely naive, or redefining safe so narrowly that the agent becomes useless. This is why the AI con is so important. It cuts through the illusion that smarter models magically fix structural problems. They don't. They amplify them. And with my experience, where I come in and launch at scale, it launches them at scale. We've got to be very careful here and have governance and policy and security to the best of our knowledge, because AI is not going away. We need to work with it. From software agents to physical agents. Now let's connect this back to autonomous soldiers, because this is where everything snaps into focus. A software agent that can read untrusted input, can take actions, can operate without suspicion and supervision is already dangerous. Now imagine the same architecture connected to camera, to actuators, to weapons. The SGR-A1 system on the Korean border is a proto example of this future today. Even if current deployments require human confirmation to fire, the trajectory is obvious. Faster reaction times, less human oversight, more automation, more reliance on machine interpretation. Once humans are no longer in the loop, but merely on the loop, responsibility becomes blurry. This is where I come in with strategic human in the loop solutions. AI isn't going away. And if you think your employees are not using it, you are wrong. In fact, in companies that have locked down, employees have simply brought in their laptop or used another laptop in their home office. And they'll take a snapshot of whatever you have, upload the unstructured data of the picture or the image into their own form of a large language model that will translate the unstructured data. They'll manipulate it, analyze it, whatever that computer does that's now not in your system, and then they'll pull it back into your guarded, lockdown infrastructure. I've seen it happen for years. You've got to be aware of what's going on. So who is accountable? The system misidentifies a civilian. The sensor data is spoofed. The classification model fails. The machine, the programmer, the commanding officer, the vendor. There's no clear answer, and that's not accidental. That's built in as a solution. What is that called? Plausible deniability. Okay, what about the book Empire of AI? Power without accountability. This is where the empire of AI lands its punch. The book makes it clear that AI power is centralized, opaque, increasingly insulated from consequence. Decisions are abstracted behind proprietary models, trade secrets, trust us governance. No, trust no one. I can't trust my neighbor. How am I going to trust the code in a computer? AI companies don't deploy agents because it's safe. They deploy agents because it's profitable, scalable, and sticky. Autonomous systems reduce labor costs, they reduce friction, and they reduce human intervention. And critically, they reduce liability and visibility of that liability. When something goes wrong, blame diffuses into the system. And that's not a bug, that is a feature. The cultural lie. Kit, Herbie, and friendly autonomy. Let's look back at these popular cultures that I mentioned. Kit from Knight Rider and Disney's VW Bug that thought for itself. Those stories taught us a lie, a comforting one. They were cute and they were protective of its owner or operator. They taught us that autonomous machines actually care about humans, especially from the Disney angle. Oh, that Herbie cared about us so much. Understand context? No, they don't get context. They share our values and they sincerely want to help humanity. Real AI systems do none of that. They optimize objectives, they follow gradients, and they maximize reward signals. If you tell a system, prevent border incursions, do you think it's going to say, oh, that person has a nice smile? Or, oh, that person walks so far. Oh, that person looks like they have children and they're suffering. No. It does not understand fear or mercy or political nuance or human error. It understands patterns associated with success. That's how you get escalation without intent and violence without malice. Why agents feel inevitable, but they don't have to be. A lot of people say, this is just progress. You can't stop it. Well, that's historically false. And I will state this here as a very unpopular decision, but not everybody allowed a foreign chemical to be injected in their bloodstream over the last few years. We've moved on from that. That game is over. Many went to prison for that stance. Many lost their jobs for that stance. But many have not passed on because of that stance. So a statement that this is just progress and you can't stop it is historically false. You are in charge. You are the human in the room. You must make decisions for yourself. So we choose not to allow Java applets unrestricted access, not to let macros auto-execute by default, not to let browsers directly touch the file systems. Let me repeat those three again. Don't allow Java applets unrestricted access. No. Don't sign on to websites using an Apple ID or Google shortcut as example. Log in via email and use your own password. Don't let macros auto-execute by default. Have a human in the loop for the review. Not to let browsers directly touch the file system. Have a separation. Each of those decisions came after real damage was done. AI agents are being deployed before the damage with full knowledge of the risks, and that's part of the con. Practical reality, what you can actually do. So what do we do right now with this knowledge? Here's the grounded advice, not hype and not panic. Number one, I've got 5 points here. Number one, do not give AI agents credentials, ever. No passwords, no tokens, no keys, period. No, it's not easier, period. Number two, isolate agents, virtual machines, sandboxes, no persistent access. You can partition a computer if you need to, but even with that, be careful. That's why so many are using the Mac Mini with Claude Bot scenario to keep it separate. Number 3, never allow autonomous execution of irreversible actions. No deleting files, no sending money, no access to your bank account, no weapons controls. Hear that to the military, no weapons controls. Number 4, treat all agent output as untrusted. Same way you treat code from Stack Overflow. It's not just the code anymore. You can't believe your eyes on videos. They don't have the little anomalies of maybe one finger being missing or a word spelled in the background. That's perfected. And you certainly can't believe any voice you hear with companies like 11 Labs that only have a small amount of speech needed in order to recreate an entire movie. And most importantly, number 5, push back on the narrative. Autonomy is not inevitable. It's a design choice that is being made. The big picture. We are standing at the same point we were before widespread malware, before mass surveillance, before ad tech colonized the web. The difference is at scale. AI agents collapse speed and access and decision making into a single automated loop. If we get this wrong, we just don't clean up hacked machines. We clean up real world consequences, borders, infrastructure, finance, and defense. So my final thoughts here. AI in itself isn't evil, or at least it isn't yet. But unchecked autonomy is reckless. The AI con shows us how hype blinds us. Empire of AI shows us who benefits. And this plausible deniability is extremely serious. Plus, AI systems like Samsung's autonomous sentries show us that this future isn't coming, it's already here, and it has been for nearly 20 years. So let's be honest about what these systems are and what they're not, and about what the real human cost is. So if you found this useful, share it with someone, especially someone who is involved in AI governance, but maybe not taking it as seriously. Someone who still thinks AI agents are just cool helpers. They're not magic, they're not machinery, and machinery demands responsibility. Hey, thanks for watching. Stay sharp, and yeah, be careful out there. It's a whole new world.